Hello everyone, this is Tony from Two Copper Pieces. I'm the one without the beard. In this episode we're going to be painting some Stormbringer gutrippaz, which are the models from the very first issue of Stormbringer, issue 1. And I'm going to be painting them using glaze medium to turn some Vallejo paints that I have into contrast paints. I love contrast paints. I think they are excellent, they save me so much time, but I've got a massive case of loads of different shades of colours by Game Colour that, you know, if I'm just going to be using contrast paints as much as I do now, I'm not going to see a lot of use. So if I can use a bit of glaze medium or contrast paint medium and try to turn them into something approximating contrast paints, at least I can use them. So I'm going to see how it goes here. These minis I've already primed, and I've done a sort of a zenithal highlight. These are brighter than a lot of minis I would usually than the usual level I would usually get to, but hoping these contrast, these, you know, Frankenstein contrast paints are going to do the trick for me. Here, just also because I'm painting a big batch of them, there's like 9 of these. I'm going through a process, like I'm doing the skin of all of the models first, and then so because they're the lowest part of the model. And then I'll start to work my way up to the sort of outer parts. If you have layers on Paint Shop or something like that, the lowest layer will be the skin on these models because they'll be underneath everything else. And now I've switched over to the shield. So what I just said about layers, just completely ignore, because the shield is obviously one of the highest parts. But never mind, there are things on the shield, like maybe it has its own layer situation. Obviously the inside the mouth would be the lowest part. So already kind of exposed myself as someone who's talking absolute gibberish. But yeah, let's just have a quick look at what they're supposed to look like. That's what I'm aiming for, more or less. I'm not going to worry too much about the exact blends of the colors, like a green, like unless the green is going to be close enough to what they show on the box there. So is that red, so is this brown, and nothing is going to be drastically different, but I'm not going to be color matching and really stressing about that. Just getting the paint on there and trying to be careful as I go along not to accidentally get brown on something else, or because then I'll have to clean it up. I may just have to clean it up immediately if that happens, but most of the time really thin brushes are your friend. Trying to get if it's a big surface like that, sure, fine, but but otherwise, if you're going for smaller details, just get the tip of your brush covered in paint, maybe the top quarter of the brush at most, because you're less likely to accidentally white paint on in the wrong places when you're getting into little crevices and cracks. That can really help, and even though it might take you a little longer per stroke, I guess, in the long run, it's going to save you a lot of time with cleanup. The way I originally learned to paint minis was to start with your base coats, which I guess is kind of the GW way. After priming, the GW don't tell you to prime, at least they don't in this magazine. They don't give you any primer. They're just like, yeah, slap this on the mini and do like 6 coats and then it will stay on. Yeah, of course it will, 6 coats. But if you primed it, you wouldn't need to do that many coats. Anyway, like I was saying, once everything is primed, do your base layers and base block colors in. So, you know, let's say you're painting one of these gutrippaz, you'll paint the skin like a solid dark green, and you'll paint the darkish green, you know, you'll paint their face, you'll paint their shield like a solid darkish red, and you'll paint their leathers like a solid darkish brown, and then you'll go for like another green, brown and red the next like notch up, and start adding in lighter layers on top, and then you go through that until you get to like the highest, brightest version of the colors to do the top bits. And obviously that makes sense, that works. Layering like that is going to bring out the right tones, and you just go for the high points for the brightest bits, etc. That makes sense, but it just takes a long time, and I personally don't enjoy painting that way. I just get bored, fed up. I've got so many models in my box of shame or whatever it is, so many models in the queue that I want to paint, and I don't want to be spending hours and hours on like one miniature's face or shield or something like that, especially when you can get pretty good results doing this. I'd say not just pretty good results, I'd say if I were going to use that approach or this approach would probably give me better results. I'm sure other people could paint with that approach and do a lot better than me. But for me, this sort of style really works. So using contrast paints gets a lot of the values in there, the brightness, the darkness in the right places. It helps do that really quickly. Here you'll have seen me going in with contrast paint, darker versions after the lighter, after the initial contrast, to make their like sort of muscles pop and stuff like that. I wouldn't cover the model or smother the model in those like darker colors, just trying to get into the cracks and the crevices. And that, I find that really helps. It's a bit like adding definition to the darker recesses, like they might do in, say, in a movie. I know in 300, to make the actors' abs a lot more pronounced, they went in with some, I don't know, body paint or something like that, but sort of thinned it down and then made their abs really pop. Some of them, I'm sure they all had abs. Some of them perhaps less pronounced than others, but that's something that made them really stand out. And that's the sort of thing you can do here to really make those muscles pop, to make like ripples in clothing stand out and be really clear. Just go in with a darker version of the color, water it down, or not water it down, thin it, use some medium, maybe water sometimes if it will work, but it's a lot more likely to behave if you use medium, and just get it into those cracks. Don't let it touch the higher points of the higher surfaces, because you have to wipe it off. But then once you've done that step, you can then just go in with a lighter color and add highlights on the top. Here I'm just highlighting the metallic bits around the edges, bit of edge highlighting or high point highlighting. But you don't have to do that with white. You can do it with white, but you could do this all the way through, and you'll notice that once I've done the lower point definition, I've just gone to add some higher highlights on the higher points of their muscles and ripples and all that sort of thing. Anyway, I hope you found this informative. Forgot to shout out the Golden Lemon Network, so I'll do that now quickly. Golden Lemon Network, sign up. There's Discord below. Great painters who can help you with lots of tips and stuff like that. Or perhaps you might have your own creative endeavor and you want to jump in there. Click the Discord link to find us. Well done, everybody. Thanks for well done for making it this far. See you next time.